Welcome back to part two. We just recently left off with the. Now let's continue on with our case, shall we? Her mom would go on to ask, did someone cut her up piece by piece? That's what she thinks. I mean, it is a possibility, but we don't know. That's the problem right there. So on November 25th, 2000, one day after a newspaper article was published about her case in the Tampa Bay Times, another bizarre discovery would be made at the convenience store that she frequented. Um, That Saturday, Terry Wilson, a girlfriend of Diane's brother, walked into a Circle K convenience store along Highway 19, just north of Hudson, near Viva Villas, a neighborhood that Diane was often in. There, inside of a convenience store on top of the lottery ticket counter, Terry would find a bag of random knickknacks with the name Diane on it with a black marker. Believing that this might have something to do with the case of her boyfriend's missing sister, Terry would take the bag back to Diane's family, who would then inform the police about the discovery. There was a clear plastic bag that contained items that Diane would have been using at the time of her disappearance: black eyeliner, taboo perfume, bright pink lipstick, as well as a generic brand of toothpaste. Coincidentally, this was the same type of toothpaste issued by a mental health facility Diane had just spent a couple of weeks before her disappearance, and this bag appeared to have the same similar to be the one kept by those in the mental health facility, leading Diane's family to assume that it belonged to her. The question of how and why it had been left at the convenience store somehow seemed to be abandoned, intrigued by her loved ones and investigators. And authorities would announce that they were going to review the security tape from the convenience store in hopes of determining who had placed the bag at the counter, but it doesn't seem like anything has come to light other than a renewed belief that Diane Augat or someone had been or someone knew had been happened to her, which is still in the area. Thankfully, this case was not refrained from the press for a very long time, but will be linked to another strange case that that was that was just beginning to unfold just months later. At around 4 o'clock p.m. on a Wednesday of June 27, 2001, a pair of men wearing a black ski mask barged into the office of the Coral Sands Motel in Hudson, Florida. Located just off of US 19, this was a cheap and affordable motel that would be frequented by those with nowhere else to go. The seemingly included the two masked men who barged into the office, a motel's office, a trailer, brandishing firearms. Once inside the office, the two men would hit motel manager Rose Casper in the face, causing her to yell out for her boyfriend, co-manager Gary Evers, who was in the back room of the trailer. By the time that Gary ran to the front, Rose had already been hit a couple of times by the two masked men. Quickly fled. The following evening on June 28th, Gary Evers would invite a man to the motel, which, again, what a trailer that both he and Rose lived in. That man was 26-year-old Todd Cameron, a young man with a long history of burglary and other criminal acts, who Gary suspected of being one of the two gunmen the night prior. Believing that the younger man had battered his girlfriend, Gary would pull out a 9mm and ask at gunpoint if he was responsible. It is not known if Todd responded, but Gary would open fire, emptying two magazines on the 26-year-old's body. Mm. On the morning of Friday, June 29th, 52-year-old Gary Robert Evans was taken into police custody and charged with first-degree murder. Surprisingly, it was discovered that Evers pretty much had no prior criminal history other than the allegation of pulling a gun on a man on October 1999 for attempting to sleep with a stripper who Evers knew was dating another man at the time. But in that case, no charges have been filed, despite police being called out to the motel. Hmm, very interesting. Um, it was later revealed that in the court that the man Gary Everett shot to death, 26-year-old Todd Cameras had nothing to do with the attempted robbery on June 27, 2001. In fact, Cameras had only gone to the motel in an attempt to clear his name. The true culprits of an attempted robbery had another couple of another couple of lowlights from the region. Edwin Humphrey and Robert Hay, who had been committed a string of similar robberies in the same week. Humphrey had actually shot Hay in order to cover up their involvement in another crime, earning him a life sentence, which confessed to being one of the who battered Gary's girlfriend at the Coral Sands motel office. That this was a tragic case of mistaken identity costing two men their lives. Gary Evers would later serve a life sentence in prison on April of 2004, and the records indicate that he remained incarcerated in Florida state prison system until May of 2012. So, here's the question that comes about with this whole situation. How does it relate to Diane's case? Well, at the same time that this story was breaking the press, it was reported that Diane's family member, that Gary Robert Evers, was the man convicted in the motel shooting throughout 3 years after Diane's um disappearance. Anyway, so the man convicted at the motel shooting 3 years after Diane's disappearance had one of the investigators of the main suspects going back to 1998. In the motel that he managed, the Coral Sands Motel was one of Diane's last known locations and was located just a short distance from where she shot was last seen, as well as being close to the location where the plastic bag containing her belongings were approximately seen several months prior. So while investigators have been coy about the potential links of Diane's August and Gary Evers, her remains here remains the only publicity known as the suspect of the case, and despite her passing away in 2012, it is believed that he may have been involved in Diane's disappearance, or held knowledge of the grave. So following some research, like there was a group of women matching the same general description of Diane, who went missing in the area between 1995 and 2002. These women, like Diane, were seen at bars and restaurants in the Tampa area, just also seem a bear an uncanny number of semblance. Could this be a coincidence? Could it be a MO? But 37-year-old Kathy Struckhoff, a recovering alcoholic suffering from severe depression, was killed in February 1995. She was last seen in company of a man named John in the Tampa area of a Texans lounge, where staff at the bar claiming that John had been a regular. And just so clear, John is a pseudonym. But anyway, regular that never returned after Kathy's murder. Her body was found the following morning just off Little Road in Newport Richley, but John, mysteriously a man in his 50s, was never identified, and Kathy's murder remains unsolved today. As does the murder of 36-year-old Kimberly Langlois Wilson. Another woman that had been struggled with substance abuse and alcohol, Kimberly was found dead in the shallow ditch along the Hudson Delaware Delmar River Drive and Flicker Lane, and had been last seen alive on June 5, 1999. Police pegged her death on June 9 to 10. 34-year-old Wanda Allen Brown was another struggling alcoholic that had previously worked as a bartender and who was missing in June of 2000. And she was the last seen working away from her husband home in Hudson, heading out of the bar named Sullivan's nearby. Sadly, Wanda was never seen or heard from again, disappearing without any of her belongings. Then there is the case of 33-year-old Kathleen Marie Wanas- Wanda Sega, again, I apologize if I'm butchering that name up, who was another struggling alcoholic that disappeared in October 2002, and she was last seen walking from her home in Port Richley, possibly heading out to a bar to celebrate her birthday, and she never returned home again. And she would fail to cash a $500 check that was mailed to her days later. While it is indeed very possible that all these are unrelated incidents, it does seem like it's pretty coincidental, if you ask me. It might be an MO, if you ask me. I have a theory that the person who done all of these cases is the same person who participated in the disappearance of Diane Argo. I mean, Agate. So, this these were all the women that ranged in age from 33 to 40 years old, who were the same height and weight, who had previously suffered from alcoholism and substance abuse, and had varying degrees of distance of loved ones. These five women would all be murdered or go missing from the same general area. While heading out to a bar in Tampa area over roughly a 7-year period. This could all be coincidence, after all, but Tampa is a large metro area, in which there are 2 million people calling it home, after all. Um, but these crimes all took place in Fort Ridgely or Hudson. The towns in Florida with a rather small population. It's possible in grasping at straws here, but it could be a hope that some investigators look into. Probably something, at least a theory to look into, that this could all be from the same person. But 40-year-old Diane Augat was last seen in April of 1998 and was last known to be staying with her sister in the Hudson Cobblestone Drive, but will be reportedly be seen in the surrounding area in the next few days. She had a history of mental illness, substance abuse, and was known to be an incredibly trusting woman when not on medication. For this reason, it was believed that she may have willingly been in the company of people who intended to harm her. So while rumors have been persisted about her Tampa area home, there has not been no confirmed sighting of her since a second week of April 1998. If she is still alive, she will be approximately 62, give or take. Um, Likely suffering from bipolar, and she stood at around 5'4" all around her disappearance and weighed 130 pounds, and has dark strawberry blonde hair, which was likely with grayed with age. There is a $3,000 reward that still exists for information, including her current whereabouts, and anyone with no information called Crime Stoppers of Tampa Bay, Florida. Um, but that is it for today's episode. I will see y'all next time. Y'all have a great day.